Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about fulfillment. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, would you say that you consider your job as a software engineer fulfilling enough? Yes, I would. But I've also acknowledged that I've reached the dip now. I've been waiting for this for quite some time because I've known for years that it's gonna happen sooner or later, and now I'm at that point, I would say. And the dip, well, it's a theoretical concept, but basically the idea is that there's actually a book that you can read about it as well if you would like. The idea is that whenever you start something on a commitment to a journey of some sort, what will happen is that you will start climbing in terms of your sensation of fulfillment and personal development and personal enjoyment will be an almost exponential curve, right? And it will keep on going upwards and upwards, and we really don't know. It can be something that happens very quickly or something that happens over a long period of time. It will continue working upwards until you reach a certain point where it will start to drop. In other words, you will feel less excited, less committed, etc., to the things that you are doing. Now, when that starts to happen, it's usually because you've done the thing that I like to say is that this is it was actually funny because a friend of mine he watched this movie called Ted, where like the teddy bear comes to life, and he said, I remember something you said, Frederick. You said once upon a time to me when we were kids that it does not matter how amazing something is, sooner or later everybody will get used to it and it will become boring and ordinary. And that is basically the plot. That's sort of the thing that happens in that movie. Well, a lot of other stuff, of course, as well. But it's the same deal, right, guys? Just as with drug use or with doing the same thing over and over, watching the same movie over, etc., it has a you lose the sensation of it becomes trivial, and you become resistant to everything, regardless of what it is, and that's going to happen to you as well. I can basically guarantee you that that's going to happen sooner or later. It may not feel, and I would argue that I have and I am still probably one of the most passionate software developers, at the very least, that I've met, that like I know. I really, and I still love what I do, but I've gotten to that point where I've started to drop in how much energy and fulfillment I get from my job. And the good part about this is that when you get the low period, it's the theory of the dip at the very least, and this is something that I've seen many times before. You will be in a low point in comparison to where you used to be, and the whole thing now is that you need to stick it out, or like to kind of make it through while you're not in that high peak state, and then you will get a rise again later on when things, well, I'm not going to go too much into the theory, but I suspect that the reason why this is because over time the world changes, or you change and you forget things. It's sort of like, imagine that you watched the same movie, like your favorite movie, so many times that you're sick of watching it, right? Now, in order for you to get some enjoyment from watching it again, or like an old computer game or something like that, you have to let enough time pass until you get the sensation of that replaying it would be like your memory of it has become a little bit like you've created some distance, and now it might be worth going back and watching it again because you really like that movie or that game or whatever, right? So you replay it or you rewatch it, maybe a few years later, and it's still good, or etc. And that's that. I'm not really explaining this all that well, I think, but that is sort of the state that I'm in right now, where the enjoyment I get from the work that I do is very high in terms of, I mean, if I compare what I do now to practically any other job I've ever had, it's sort of, I get a lot of enjoyment from it, but at the stage I am right now, honestly, I'm a little bit happy at the same time, because at the stage I am right now, the amount of thinking I have to put into my work is still fairly high, but I don't get a lot of fulfillment back, which means that I unfortunately spend too much time in my own head. When I used to work in other jobs when I was younger, uh, some work, which is a little bit of a blessing, I think, is so trivial, if that makes sense. I used to be a mover, for example, where the benefits of having a job like that, when you get to this point, it's sort of like you're constantly moving around. You don't really have to think so much about what you're doing. It doesn't require a lot of reflection to move furniture, but it is exciting enough, if that makes sense. It's something where it's a little bit mindless, depending on how you do it, of course, but like, you're moving stuff around and you're sort of forced into situations where there's not a lot of personal quiet reflection time going on, which is the case for software development. So at least I found that I could manage those situations a lot better, I think, at the very least, simply because I didn't spend as much time in my head as I do when I am doing software development. But now that I do software development, there are other benefits to it. It's, from my perspective, just a matter of that you have to understand that it is unsustainable, it's impossible to only grow or to only raise your sensation of fulfillment or happiness with the work that you do. Sooner or later, you're going to have a down period, and then the question becomes, okay, what are you going to do with that down period? And the way that I do it is very simple. I try to do other things that allow me some rest from like my normal activities. I usually do a lot of different programming things in my spare time as well. But I also know that I need a bit of a break sometimes from doing that. So I might do completely different things that I have never really done before. I mean, as an example, instead of spending all my time thinking about programming every single day, I add more yoga, or like I start doing yoga, or I buy a bicycle and I start riding around my own, like I take bike rides and listen to audiobooks or podcasts or something like that, because my fulfillment has now gotten to a point where I can't have one single source that gives me that fulfillment. Programming is now not in of itself enough for me to feel fulfilled, which it used to be, if that makes sense. And I know for a fact that is not like something that's going to be that way forever, because sooner or later something new will come around the corner, because it's happened a few times before, which is going to reignite that very, very strong passion I have for my job, or for my career as a software developer. So what I want you to take away from this is that I do consider my job to be fulfilling enough. I don't really think that there is any job out there where you're always going to be in this state where everything is just fun all the time. I don't think that is possible. You're always going to have, like, I believe everything sort of goes in waves. And when you're at the top, everything is amazing, and when you're at the bottom, at least that's what I believe, you want to flatten out as much as possible in the curves, so that the dip isn't so bad. And I've found that has worked pretty well for me. The main difference between me being in a really excited state is that when I'm in that excited state where I feel a really strong fulfillment, I'm very passionate, almost insanely so. I work all the time, and I pour my entire heart and soul into everything I do related to programming. When I'm in the dip, I can sporadically do a little bit of extra side code apart from my job and so forth, and then I need other things to help me feel fulfilled. So that's why I think that people should treat their life with a little bit of diversity, because it's difficult if you only have one thing in your that is fulfilling to you, like your job, for example. It becomes very difficult when you don't feel as much return on investment from that thing. It's sort of, as I said, with watching an old movie. If you only ever watched one movie and you never did anything else, it would be, sooner or later you're not going to find any enjoyment from that thing, and then you have to go and do some other stuff and forget about that movie for a little while until you can revisit it and then still get some enjoyment from it. And I look at my job as a software developer in a similar sort of similar sense, where where I am right now, the work that I do is fulfilling. It's just not as exciting as it used to be when I was in at the absolute peak last, at the very least. But it's still very much fulfilling, and I still very much enjoy it. Have a great day.